What was the process behind bringing this character to life?
They did have the Chinese recording, but they also said we do not want a carbon copy.
What was your reaction when you first saw this opening scene?
I was blown away. I was reading the reactions. A lot of people liked it. Some people didn't, and that's okay.
What do you feel when you watch that animated cutscene of your character?
There's something in it that just hits you emotionally. Dare I say, I'm really proud of my work in it.
Hello everybody, welcome to Behind the Voice. I'm joined by the incredible Mark Takeshi Ota, who plays Sun Wukong in Black Myth Wukong, the incredible game. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining today.
Happy to. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I really love about you as in your career is that you do a lot of plays. Like a lot of plays have been going on, and you have one that is going on right now, which is I guess still going on till October 9th, if I'm not wrong.
We finished.
So.
We finished because
finished.
we're in November. We're in November, honey. So it's okay. It's okay. We sometimes get behind. It's fine. Sometimes we want to forget what happens.
I forgot. Yeah, I completely. I was like, yeah, it must be October today.
No. We finished. That's right. We finished about a month ago. So yeah. But I have been doing a lot of plays. I mean, I graduated in 2014. From drama school, and I got into doing some video game acting first mocap in 2017, but I did my first voiceover in 2020. So it was like 6 years after I graduated that I started really doing voiceovers, and even then it was a slow burn, So I've done much more work in theater before I came to voiceovers in video games and things. So
it must be crazy, like, because you have so much that you have to do. Obviously you have plays and you have voice work as well. How do you maintain that stress level when you have like to do one after the other and it continues to go on?
I mean, it really depends, because as a lot of actors will tell you, there's downtime, in between jobs. I think an actor that is just constantly busy either is lying to you, or they're just the 1% of the 1% or something, But it is true that sometimes they just come in droves. Sometimes you're doing one project and then another one comes and another one comes, and you're just like, oh my god, can I manage all of this? And those times are stressful, and you just kind of have to sometimes also make choices. Sometimes you just have to go like, look, I'm really sorry, but I cannot do this, and I don't have time for that. And it's when that happens, it's always frustrating as an actor, because you often think, why didn't you contact me like 4 months ago when I had nothing to do? But at the same time, you learn early on also that if that happens, it's a good position to be in, like you're in demand, and and also, especially with voiceovers, oftentimes there's some flexibility, because you can be like, hey, I'm engaged in this project right now, but I will have more time, in 2-3 weeks or something like that. Can we rearrange, And unless they have a pressing deadline where like, oh no, the game's coming out, we need to do this now, then usually there is some wiggle room. Like I think combining actually voiceovers and theater is usually pretty good, because also theater is always in the evening. Like when you finish rehearsal, theater is usually in the evening, except for if you have a matinee. And voiceovers, especially for video games, tend to be on the shorter end, so the sessions are usually 2-3 hours, 4 max maybe, but even that is rare. That means you could do a couple of hours during the day and still do a show in the evening, if the voiceover isn't too taxing. If it's something like really shouty and you're doing a 3-hour Shakespeare or something, and then it's a little bit difficult. But for the most part, it's pretty doable. But it is sometimes tricky. I think a lot of what happens also is auditions that you get through are tapes. Often they're on the weekends or something, because they're like, come through on a Friday, on a Thursday, and then so it's you do have to manage your time well and make sure you still have a social life and time for yourself and all that. So it's different. I mean I'm not really used to anything else, because I've never really done a full-time job where I go in Monday to Friday. But it's manageable. It's manageable.
One of the things that I like about the play is like obviously it's like very fun to watch is performing in front of people, and you always have like someone else, at least someone else to perform with. Usually in voiceover, that's not the case where you have to most of the time do it alone. So when it comes to games or even voiceover in general, is there something that you have to keep in mind when you're going to those sessions that is different when it comes to theater or anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with voiceovers, I mean, in both cases, both theater and voiceovers, as a performer, or voiceovers for video games in particular, as a performer, you really have to learn to stimulate your imagination, and because in theater as well, you kind of sometimes in a space where 1,000 people are looking at you, and you have to pretend that they're not something, and like that they're not there, and you're just having an intimate conversation with your partner or something.
Yeah.
And so but you're right that in theater, the joy of it is often that you get to play with another performer and you can feed off them, or in some cases also where the fourth wall, between the audience and you is not so strong, you get to feed off the audience as well, maybe sometimes interact depending on what it is. But voiceovers for video games in particular, yeah, you usually do come in with a strong idea of what maybe the voice is like, and you get told kind of what the surroundings is, and you have to use your imagination for that. Sometimes if a recording has already been done for another character, you maybe played those back, and it's like you're having a conversation. But if that's not the case, then that's the job of a director, of course, to help multiple actors that are in the same scene, for example, do their work individually and then still sound well together when you later put them together. So often I think what happens, especially if it's a conversation, you might have one person record first, imagine what that's like, and then another person will just respond and match that energy. But it is different work, and but you have to be really flexible, I think, when you're doing voiceovers. And you might come in with an idea and be like, hey, this is, I think, what it's like. But then, a director might throw something very different at you because what you had in mind wasn't quite like, you obviously usually cast based on your interpretation. But if it doesn't quite fit that, you still have to be able to change, and adapt. But I think that's kind of the fun of it also. You just don't quite know what's going to be thrown at you. Yeah, it's really enjoyable, And theater is quite different. Theater, I'm contradicting myself a little bit here, but no, theater, it's the same, but it's different, in theater, you also, you have weeks to rehearse a play and, kind of figure out how things work. You're trying out different things. And, when you go in for a voiceover for a game, it just all happens, right? Within 2 hours. And you're like, all right, you are a sorcerer and, you're being attacked and something, say, okay.
Yeah.
Or you're a monkey king or whatever. And, it's like, yeah, I'm a god. It's chill. It's cool.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I can easily tap into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. I hope I don't sound like a narcissist. So, yes. I'm a king of the monkeys. Easy. It's always how I thought of myself anyway, so it's not that much of a stretch,
Oh man, it's so incredible that we talk about Monkey King. It's so incredible how far the game Black Myth Wukong has come, because people have been playing a lot of this game. Like in the last, it's not even been 2 months since this game is out, I think, or more than 2 months. And it's like sold more than 20 million copies right now.
It's absolutely mind blowing. It's. I mean, obviously, my understanding is like the numbers are all like semi-public, I guess. But obviously, a huge portion of that is in China because it's such a story. It's a story that's just so, I think, well known over there. Much more. I mean, people in the West and other parts of Asia and things do know it in Africa. But obviously, it's very precious to people there. So I'm not surprised that it would be such a huge success. And also, like, isn't it like the first AAA game from China? Was it considered the first AAA game or one of
Yeah,
the
I think
first or
so. I think
something?
so. It is considered. I believe it is considered like as like a AAA title. I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the first, I think, from China. So, but even outside of China, gosh, it's yeah, has really taken off. So it's yeah, it's a little surreal sometimes, I think. But it's pretty cool. I can't say it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally understandable. And the game has been nominated for the Ultimate Game of the Year and then in the Golden Joystick Awards as well. And there's more
Yeah,
awards
yeah.
coming. Obviously, I'm pretty much sure at the Game Awards, which happens towards the end of the year, it will be there. And I believe a lot of people are going to vote for it. Pretty sure about
I
it.
I I think it's got a big fan base, and I think rightfully
Yeah.
so. I think it's a stunning game. I've not played it that far. I've played a little bit of it, but it's yeah. I think it's a really really fun game also, and difficult. It's a challenging game, I think,
Yes,
but
very much.
yeah, I think it's really hit a nerve. I think from what I've just read here and there is it feels quite pure kind of in its approach, right? It's just in some way simple. Like um it's not open world. It's a little bit more linear in some ways, and it focuses on just good battle mechanics and things like that. And I also kind of also like that it doesn't actually. Some people said like in the reviews, oh, it doesn't have a map, but it's
Mm,
kind of it's a bit more pure. It's kind of like a bit more immersive, actually. Kind
yeah.
of you're just kind of there, and you just have to do it. And it yeah, it's I think it's hit a nerve of what players really wanted. I think at this time.
For sure.
So
One of the coolest thing is the moment the game starts, you get a really cool opening scene, and it's your character there. What is the
yeah.
surprise factor for you when you see that scene for the first time? Like fully rendered, everything is done. When you see that scene for the first time, what's your surprise factor? Because you have these big giants, and you have this Monkey
Mm.
King, and it's just intense action going on.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it first when I did it, actually. So I recorded it, and they already had the cinematic there. So
Wow.
I could voice it to the cinematic, because obviously the Chinese version was done first and the English version was done later. And but I mean, I was blown away, and I was just sometimes I do think sometimes you do like work where you go like, oh my God, this is just really cool, but you at the same time you can't let that influence too much what you're doing as a performer, right? Because you have to just do your job, and like uh, um but still inside I was thinking, Jesus, this is a really just epic sequence, and I just can't believe that my voice is part part of that in my performance. But yeah, it's just epic, really. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just epic and cool, and like um the young nerd in me is also like very, like when I think about, I played a lot of games in my teens, um and I actually initially wanted to be a video game programmer. I
Oh
always thought
wow.
that'd be really cool. Yeah. And I so I learned a few basic programming languages. I learned like basic essentially, and Turbo Pascal,
Yeah.
which was back more than 20 years ago. And I remember I did a course also in programming, and but I just found eventually that it's not really for me. I think coding is that wasn't the path for me.
Mm,
But yeah, I was very passionate about games, and I loved it. And so to kind of come a little bit full circle, because I studied economics, and then I went into acting, and then only later on in acting I realized, hey, like that's a job you can do in games. You can work
yeah.
in games as an actor. I don't know. It's not the thing that first crossed my mind. I think when I went into acting, it's just really like I just didn't think about it. Like and so to then be there and voice this character in this epic sequences, yeah, it's just really cool. It's just that I don't know.
It
how
is
else to
so
describe it?
cool.
It's
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah, yeah. So, and there was a little bit of nervousness also, like,
Mm.
because I'm like, um, you know, I voiced the main character once, which was Great Ace Attorney. But
Yes.
all the other games I did were usually smaller characters, side characters, you know, and while people obviously, you know, still listen to them, and you still make up the bulk sort of a game, and if a game is kind of like reviewed as, oh, the voices in this are really good, like for example Baldur's Gate, you know, like
Yeah.
in general the voice acting and the acting in that game is highly praised, and to be part of that big group of people is great. But if you like the main thing, you know, like the main character or something, you feel a little bit more pressure of like kind of, oh, what if people hate what you're doing? Then, you know, like that's kind of, you get a little nervous. But at the same time, you can't let that influence you, because in the end you get hired based on, you know, what you do an audition, and then the people that are making it think, yep, that's what we want. And you got to take that confidence and just, you know, do the best you can. And some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it, and that's just that's just how the world turns, you know.
Yeah, that's just how the
um
world turns. I think one of the lines that even in the opening is where it's not, I don't remember exactly the line, but usually Sun Wukong
mhm.
just wants to have like freedom and wants to escape from like someone else's expectation while whatever he was doing. And now he's finally reached that point where he wants to go away and just wants to live in peace. Did you
Yeah.
experience in your life where you had a desire to get away from someone else's expectation?
Oh, I don't know if someone else's expectation necessarily, but I did. I mean, like, I moved away from my home country and then moved away again and moved away again. So, I mean, I'm from Germany originally, right? My dad's
Yeah.
Japanese, my mother's German, and I moved to, well, I spent a year in the US when I was 16, and I lived in a host family there. And then when I went back to Germany, graduated from high school, and then I moved to Amsterdam to do a degree in economics. And then when I finished that, I moved to the UK, and because I wanted to go to acting school. And in between, I also spent a year in Japan, um, to uh, um, to study Japanese and improve my Japanese. So there's always this thing of where you kind of, I don't know if it was expectation. I think my parents usually were quite supportive, and for the most part, um, and let me do my thing. They weren't too controlling and kind of saying, "Oh, you need to do this" or something like that. I think so. I'm quite lucky in that regard. Um, and so I don't know if I was necessarily fleeing expectation, um, but I did like the idea of like, oh, sort of going somewhere new, and
Mm.
you know, um, finding sort of a new life there. So, and maybe that is a running away of some sorts or something. I don't know.
I
um,
guess so.
you know, but it's also, I think sometimes you're realizing, hey, I think here, whatever I have here is not the life that I think I desired. And then you kind of, if you have the possibility, and you know, back then I lived in Amsterdam, I have a German passport, and before Brexit, it was very easy to come to the UK. You know, for people
Yeah.
now, it is a lot more difficult. But at the time, in 2012, when I moved here, it was as easy as just, you know, getting a plane ticket and coming here. That you didn't need anything else, you know. And
Wow.
I think that's in a way beautiful, but I don't know. Again, not getting too much into it, but seems like the world is getting smaller, you know, and it's
Mm,
a
yeah.
little sad. But having said that, you know, I'm here in London in the UK, and life's pretty okay. I can't complain, you know.
One of the great things about with this game and with this character is, again, as I mentioned, is the voice, and the voice is very unique. What
hmm
was your first idea when you were going to voice this character? What was your first idea on how he should sound?
Well, I mean, I do like to go from just sort of what I see, because I mean, when I first auditioned for this, you know, and I was shown images, and I was actually in a session voicing other characters for the same game, and you know, the director who I've worked with before, she suggested basically that I also audition for this character, for Wukong. And I mean, it's a combination of they did have the Chinese recording and played it for me. But they also said, we do not want a carbon copy of the Chinese, which was the same for all the other characters as well. I voiced 2 other characters in it. It is usually just, and that's usually the case. It is very rare that somebody says, like, we want a replica of this in another language. Whenever I voiced characters where it was a translation, for example, Great Ace Attorney was the same. They had the Japanese voice recorded and played it to me. And you use that sort of as inspiration. But then I also go just off what I see. You try to physicalize it, you know, and when I looked at him, he was like kind of just, you know, he's always like leaning forward a bit, and then he kind of, and he looks around, and then they gave me a description also of what he's like, and he's mischievous, and he likes to, you know, play around. He's proud, but also he gets angry, and he's, you know, like there's just all of that. You find the physicality within you oftentimes, especially when you see video. You I think putting yourself into that physical position, you know, and also he's a fighter. He's ready to fight, and you kind of so that's kind of how I like to work, and you know, I physicalize it. Also, like when you look at good people that make really good impressions, you see their face molds into the other character, like Jim Carrey. When he becomes other people, he's a great impressionist. You know, his whole face looks like this other person, and it's because also the sounds we make, they're affected, right, by how we hold ourselves, you know, and so I don't know, that's just kind of what came out. And then there was also the monkiness of him that I think automatically pitched it a little bit higher. But they also were explicit, like they didn't want like monkey noises in that regard, you know, like it, which I actually grew up behind a zoo in Cologne in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So I would fall asleep to the sounds of monkey noises sometimes, you know, when they would be fighting. Yeah, it's a fun little fact about myself. We could actually see the giraffes' heads from our kitchen, because that was right behind our house, which, you know, when you're growing up and that's all you know, you think that's normal, and then later you realize, holy shit, that's weird.
Oh my god,
but
it's cool though.
Yeah, it is very cool. I like it. I wish I could look out the window now and see giraffes. I don't know, there's something cool about that. But yeah, it's just kind of, you kind of got to trust yourself. It's not too cerebral. You don't think too much about it. I think you just look at what you have, you kind of give it your interpretation, and but then they liked it clearly, you know, and so that's kind of then what I went with. And yeah, and you trust, you know, the director, and there was also a person from game science on the line that would you know, chime in and give her thoughts. And it was yeah, collaborative process in that regard. But that's always what it's like, and yeah, and then you just got to put it out there and see what people think, you know. That's how it works.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It
But
is.
it was,
I cannot believe how much, you know, stress, or maybe kind of like a stress you must have, like when the game finally comes out, on what would people think.
I don't know if it's stress. I mean, like, yeah, of course there's like the worst case scenario that like people say like, this is complete rubbish, right? It's terrible, I hate that voice. And then, yeah, of course you would be a bit disappointed. But also, as an actor, there's only so much responsibility you can take, because in the end, like I said, there's many people who have listened to my audition and then gone like, yeah, that is the voice we want, right? So, and they are the ones that know the game the best. They know the history or stuff. They are the ones that came up with it. They worked on it for much longer than me. They wrote the script. They wrote everything, right? And they recorded the Chinese original. And plus the director here and everything. We all worked together to make this happen, right? Like, so frankly, if people were super unhappy with my voice for this character, that's really only partially on me, you know. Like, there's like, in the end, I'm just here to do this job, you know, based on, you know, the help of all the other people. And of course it would be upsetting, you know, but I'd like to think, I hope it wouldn't, I wouldn't take it too personally. I mean, I think that's also the thing of like having done theater for many years before I came into this. And a lot of the theater I've done wasn't incredibly high profile. A lot of it was in smaller venues in London, in the UK. And you get all kinds of reviews, you know, like it's all somewhere out there in the internet if people want to find it. But, you know, sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative, you know, and in the end, that's all it is. It's people's opinions, you know, and you can't please everyone. But obviously, yes, I remember I was reading the reactions and like what, you know, and people, because I was curious, I was excited, you know, like I said, I'm a nerd, you know, and I was excited what people would think, you know, and you know, I was pleased that, you know, that a lot of people liked it. Some people didn't, you know, and that's okay. Like some people said, like, I'll play it with the Chinese original, and I'm like, that's totally cool. Like yeah. I'm Japanese. Most of Japanese anime or something that I watch in the Japanese original with subtitles, you know, and because my Japanese is pretty good, but it's not perfect, so I still keep the subtitles on, you know, and it's also, there's something about it that creates a different experience, a different vibe, right? If something is set in China, for some people, even if they don't speak Mandarin or you know, they might really just sort of find it a more, what's the right word, authentic experience or something, right? And it kind of more immersive maybe. But especially if you do speak the language, then yeah, I totally get it, you know. And I think it also would be silly to take it personal. I don't know. It's just yeah. But you take it kind of, yeah. It's a balance, isn't it? Of course, it's nice to be appreciated for your work. Everybody likes to be appreciated for their work. Yeah, and I think it's important to be nice about it. I think, you know, and just, hey, it's not my cup of tea, but you know, and that's okay. But we know the internet, sometimes people can be a bit vicious, and it's just how it is. But overwhelmingly, it's been positive, so I really cannot complain. And you know, I feel very lucky.
When we are playing the game, after every chapter, we also get to see these scenes, the animated scene, which is mind blowing. When you see that the one particular one, there's the bull animated scene.
Yeah,
I just like,
God, it's gorgeous.
It's so cool. How do you feel like when you watch that? Do you feel like connected straight away because of these animated scenes?
So that one in particular, also, I actually did not see it when I recorded it. I did not see the animation. I didn't know what was happening. I was given a context. I was told what's going on, and I was played the Chinese original. And you know, I was just like, all right, now go, you know, and so when I watched that video, I actually had goosebumps. I was like, oh my God, I love that animation so much. I think it's absolutely epic, and I think I might like it even more than the opening sequence. Just, I don't know, there's just something about the style of it or something, you know, and it's also, it's like I don't actually know exactly what the story of it is because it's slightly abstract, you know, and I haven't gotten to that point in the game yet either, but it is just so beautiful, and like kind of there's something in it that just hits you emotionally, and you know, dare I say, I'm really proud of my work in it. I think it sounds great, and like it's really not just mine, all the voiceovers. It just but it's just yeah, it's just a really, it is fascinating to me that, you know, like you just had these, I don't know how many actors are in that one scene, maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 or something. But like, you know, they're all separately recording, you know, in this Frankenstein-y way. Just, you know, we're all like, okay, what is the situation? What, I'm a bull? Okay, yeah, fine. And then, you know, and like because that's how it works as a voice actor. You just, you know, get a job, you come in, you do 3 hours, like, what is this thing? Okay, can you explain me the context? Okay, all right, okay, I'm dying, but I'm then alive again. Okay, yeah, right. Okay, you know, and it's just you're trying to make sense of it all, and then you just give the best performance you can based on all of that, and then you see the thing, and it's like, holy shit, this really works. This is like brilliant, you know, and so yeah, I love those sequences. They're really really stunning. Yeah, I kind of like also actually how I think I remember reading some reviews that were like slightly critical of the story that's sometimes a bit difficult to follow, I think. And I haven't played that far, so I don't know. But personally, I'm kind of a fan of when something doesn't get like when something doesn't get shoved down your throat too much, where like kind of it's it's a bit more kind of, oh, like I want to know more, and oh, there's some mystery about it. Of course, if there's too much mystery and you're just confused, that's a bit boring. But I think yeah, I really love that aspect about it, that it's just slightly mysterious. I don't know.
Yeah, it's too good. I think it's the really cool mesh of music, the animation, the story. It's all mixes so well. And as you mentioned, like I got emotional of like watching. I'm like, what is happening here? This is weird. I was not expecting this much. So it was very cool to see. And is there any animated movie or anything that you watched animated wise that really affected you in a similar or maybe stronger way?
I mean, I'm trying to think. I've watched a lot of anime just generally in my life. I mean, I watched a lot of Naruto and One Piece and Bleach. I mean, all these long running ones. I've seen a lot of it. Full Metal Alchemist. Just I would say, just watching anime in general, I think growing up a lot, Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball, which Son Goku is based on the Monkey King, so in the end, there isn't like a specific thing I would say that like influenced me the strongest, but I think as an art form, being familiar with it, and same like being familiar with video games always helps you when you're going in, and I think doing a job and loving that art form as well helps you do a good job because you're familiar, with it. But then again, there's obviously actors who don't know that world at all, and they might come from a pure, I don't know, TV or theater background, and they come in and like, all right, what is this we're doing today? I don't, like, okay, I'm a monster, fine, like, you're a wizard, Harry, like, I don't know, and you just, and you just, I don't know, you. So it's everybody's different, I suppose.
It's so cool. You mentioned all those animes. It's so I've watched so less of it, but I do know. I watch very less of Dragon Ball, but I watch very less of all of the other that you mentioned. But I've watched very few of them, and I think the one that I get strongly connected to, which I recently kind of finished, was Attack on Titan that I finished recently. And because of the
Attack on Titan, gorgeous anime. Also, like stunning.
Stunning.
I was blown away. Absolutely, no, it's stunning. I remember also. I really liked the first season. I like as it went on. I think it's always this thing of when something is really mysterious, you just really like, oh my god, what are these things? And then when you start explaining it, like you kind of, I'm not saying it wasn't like it continued to be interesting, but there's just something about you're like, oh my god, what are those titans? Oh, I don't know. And once you know, it's like, oh, okay, oh, that's what they are.
Oh, it's gone. I don't know. Maybe the mystery's gone now.
a little bit of that. I remember that. Do you remember there was a show called Heroes years ago, which was like these superheroes.
Yeah.
And then the second season didn't go so well. I think the first season it was just like somebody just wakes up, suddenly can fly, and and like it was very subtle and understated. And the second season, everybody started shooting lightnings from their wrists or something, and then people are like, oh, it's just not as exciting anymore or something, like there's something about that. Finding that tightrope, that sort of, between, all right, keeping enough mystery to have people interested, but not revealing so much that people get bored of it. I don't know. It's a fine line to walk, I think.
We'll get back into the conversation in just a few seconds because I have a very, very important announcement to make. On December 3rd, I'll be hosting a charity live stream event right here on YouTube called GameFest Game Awards, where we will be celebrating video games as well as supporting Stand Up to Cancer for their cancer research. The event will have special guests such as actors from games like Cyberpunk 2077, Alan Wake 2, Final Fantasy 16, Valorant, Overwatch, and much more. You can click the link in the description to vote for 16 nominations, and the voting window is open till only 24th November. So go vote right now, and I'll see you guys on December 3rd right here on YouTube. And now let's jump back into the conversation. Anime is also like kind of crossed over and with games and stuff. Like we have games which are more like in touch with how anime is, and one of the games that you worked on is Ace Attorney Chronicles, which it's such a fun game. I love Ace Attorney. There was an interview that you did, I think, with Polygon, where you mentioned that you had like kind of like an imposter syndrome because you were being interviewed, and that was posted in the gaming website. What was that feeling like? Because you're being part of such a game.
Yeah. No, that is interesting because, well, Great Ace Attorney was my first video game voiceover, right? And I voiced the main character in it, and I think there's this weird thing between like as an actor, maybe a lot of people have that, not just actors, but where you, on the one hand, you want to achieve great things. On the other hand, when something is thrown at you, or like when you're getting compliments, or when something, when you're achieving something, then you're like, oh, am I really good enough for that? Am I, when you start questioning it, I think, I did have that, feeling. That's what I mentioned earlier, where you kind of like, you're like, oh, what if everybody hates it or something, like what if, everybody hates me, and you get those thoughts. And I think like myself also, during the pandemic, at some point I got therapy, and like, which a lot of people probably did during the pandemic, but just kind of questioning and analyzing a lot of those thoughts. And but yeah, I remember, I think back then I felt a little bit like maybe unworthy of it or something, and I think I approach it just differently now. Actually, a friend of mine explained it in a really good way to me, and that was when I worked on My Neighbor Totoro, the stage production. He was very good when people came up and asked for signatures at stage door. Like, he was really good at talking to them and like kind of just interacting with them. And like I don't think I was rude or anything like that, but I always just felt a little uncomfortable because I wasn't like a main actor in it, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like it's this lack of maybe self-worth where you think like, who am I for people to want a signature from me? Like, what is my signature worth, And he said to me, it's like, well, like, and in a very kind way, he just said that it's not really about you, it's about that they love this thing that's kind of like bigger than all of us, which is this, in this case, this show, My Neighbor Totoro, or with Great Ace Attorney, it's something like that. With Wukong, it's not so much about you, it's about that they love this thing and you're a part of it. So if they get to interact with you, it just means they feel a little bit closer to this thing that they love so much, and that means a lot to them. And I think he's absolutely right about that, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a different perspective on that. And so I think since I've done that interview in it must have been 2021 that I'd done that interview, I think, because that's when the game came out. I think my perspective has shifted a bit, and I think I feel a little less awkward about these interactions because, look, maybe sometimes people know me a little bit more. Maybe they have seen other work that I've done or something, and they might like what I do specifically, or they might just love these things that mean a lot to them because that's how art works. Whether it's games or films or theater or something, it can move us, and it can change our way of thinking, and it just can mean a lot to us. So I understand when people kind of maybe get nervous also then, or just like don't know what to say, or they're just kind of excited about being able to share their passion with someone that is a little bit closer to this thing. And for me also, like, not to be like too self-promoting or something, but I did start streaming Great Ace Attorney last week, which has been a good friend of mine, Mia Fu, who I don't know if you didn't happen to interview
I don't
her
think so.
either,
Yeah,
did you?
no.
She played Isabel in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
And she started streaming just a few months ago. And she started streaming Baldur's Gate 1 actually, because
Oh
she's
wow.
also a nerd like me.
Wow.
And she was like, I'm not going to start with Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to play Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and then 3, you know? And I'm going to stream it
Crazy.
all. And she also did it kind of like in a way, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to play it. And if people want to watch me, then that's fine, you know? Like, and, you know, and she's been doing great, and I think she's doing like she's doing it in such a sincere way, like the way she just is, you know, playing it. And I actually took a bit of inspiration from her to kind of just put myself out there. So I just went and was like, look, I've been thinking about this for a while, you know, and maybe I'll do a little bit of streaming, and if anybody wants to join, you know, that's great. But yeah, like I got a lot more interest than I thought it would. I thought my first stream would be like maybe 3 or 4 people or something, and that'd be fine, you know. But it was like, I think nearly 100 or something that were watching live, and then, you know, a few hundred people followed me, and like, and you know, so it's a little weird and surreal. But it's the same way that I said before, it's like it's fun to interact with people that, you know, just feel passionate about something that you have been involved with, and in this case that's Great Ace Attorney, and you know, I'm feel very privileged to be able to kind of share that with people, and not to feel so awkward about it anymore. It's fine, you know.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that, about Twitch streaming, because in your
Yeah.
first stream, I actually joined that stream, was watching, and it was so
Oh
hard to
my
like keep
god.
up because there's so many people just saying a lot of things. And I was like, wow, this is great, because you play Ace Attorney. I just love that game. So it's really cool to see you
Yeah, yeah,
voice your character and you know, play
yeah.
that. It's really cool.
Oh, thanks, man. That's so sweet that you joined. Yeah, it's I mean, I guess it is really this new, I sound like an old uncle when I say this, but this new age of,
Yeah.
you know, that you can just do this thing where you directly interact with people. I remember when before I got into acting, and I went into economics instead, I always thought of actors as this distant species. Like that sounds really stupid, like when you say it out loud. But I didn't know anybody who was an actor. I just, you know, and just like in the general public, maybe you think of actors as just Robert De Niro and, you know, like Al Pacino and you know, whatever, really big actors, Meryl Streep, and, you know, and all these like famous, super famous actors, you know, and you don't think that, like, who am I to think, even though I wanted to act, who am I to think that I could become that, right? And nowadays, you know, and I haven't become that. I'm no Al Pacino, you know, like, but I have worked as an actor, and I think this idea that you can directly interact with an actor you like, or with, you know, with somebody who's worked on something that you liked, that yeah, it's just, it's a little surreal sometimes, I think, you know, but it's but it's fun, and people have been so lovely and supportive and kind, and you know, and
That's wonderful.
yeah.
And you mentioned about a lot of games that you played. Is there any game that is very near and dear to your heart?
What would be like near and dear to me? I've played so many games. What did I play? I mean, truthfully, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 I played. Actually, 1 I played probably more than 2.
Wow.
Maybe I never played 2 through to the end. I'm not quite sure right now. But I played a lot of Diablo 2 also. That was a big part of me. But I also liked a lot of story-driven games. I mean, Baldur's Gate is story-driven, obviously,
Yeah.
but like Half-Life was also a game I liked a lot. But I played a lot of it. I kind of recall sometimes a game called Ultima 9 Ascension.
Oh, yeah.
This is like really old school. And the other day I just looked it up out of curiosity, and it seems to have had like really bad reviews or something, but I just remember it, like, playing it and was like, oh my god, like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like this open world game. There's one game that is actually like a game called Outcast.
Yeah.
have you played it or
I've not played it. I've
the
heard about it. Yeah, I've not played it. But
Outcast? Outcast, I loved that game so much. I wonder, did it come out in the late 90s, I think? And that was also sort of like a really immersive open world game. And you kind of went through a Stargate into this other world, right? And it was just, I don't know, there was something about it that just made me feel like I'm really in another world and something. And, it was just really exciting and fun. And I remember back then I really wanted there to be a sequel, but then it never came out and stuff, and it was quite disappointing. But over the years, I don't know, I've played a lot of Final Fantasy VII. I think also was one of the big ones. Yeah, so I don't know. I'll probably think of one just after we hang up. So, oh, I didn't even mention that. How could I forget?
Yeah, I can totally
Obviously,
understand.
Great Ace Attorney is near and dear to my heart now,
Of course.
but I didn't actually know it before I voiced it. So it's I was always a PC gamer, so I never really had a console. So a lot of games that nowadays I think things come out on console and PC,
And yeah,
but back then it wasn't the case. If you didn't have a Nintendo or a PlayStation, certain games, world of games that you just weren't familiar with.
yep.
It's like no, I just PC, so Stargate and no, Stargate. What am I saying? StarCraft, and things like that. Also, Warcraft, StarCraft, and so many games. Yeah,
So many games. And when you take a look back at your career and what you've done, what are some of the things that you wish you knew before? Like now you know that. What are some of the things that you wish you knew at that time when you started?
Oh, what are the things that I wish I knew? I think acting is a bit like, very many other skills, and you just get better with time. And I think you have to be patient. And I think, sometimes we have this impression, and this does happen sometimes in this industry, is that we get a lot of success very quickly, not we, people in general, but sometimes also you're not quite ready for it, and that's okay. It takes time to get better at it, and you just need to be patient, I think, and keep working on your skills while you do it. I mean, I learned a lot from just taping for a lot of video games. I record samples almost every week, and it didn't used to always be the case. It's like, because now I'm busier and have done more work. Probably more people are interested in hearing me tape for things. And sometimes when you're starting out, that's very frustrating, because you think like, oh, if somebody only lets me audition, I'm going to show them how great I am, and and maybe that's true, and maybe you're great when you're starting out, but there's still a lot to learn. There's always a lot to learn, and I think, yeah, it's just important to be patient with those things, I think. That's why I say it sounds annoying, because like it's like it's like, oh, just wait and good things will come. I don't know, it might not, but it's yeah. I think it's important to be patient, because also it sets up your expectations. If you get into whether it's voice acting or acting, and you just expect to have all the success in the first couple of years, like you might get disappointed, and that's tough. And I mean, it took me, like I said, I graduated 2014, and now it's 2024. So in 10 years, it took me that amount of time to even have a reasonable income from this industry and from this job, and for a long time I had to do other work, and to supplement my income, and one might have to do that for a long time if one goes into his job, and it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah. I think that's the word, the reality of it. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
You just have to go with that. And
Yeah,
about
unless you got like $1 million in the bank because somebody gave it to you, then by all means,
Oh yeah.
like, but
Then you're set.
not many people are that lucky, so. But at the same time, it's also like, I think the flip side of it is, don't stand in your own way so much. like these kind of things that I said about like the self-doubt, feeling not worthy and stuff like that. Like I think the quicker you can get that out of the way, I think the better, because oftentimes we stand in our own way, I think. Like whether it's in auditions and you question, is this good enough? It's always good to get other opinions. It's good to get training, but it's also good to just put yourself out there and do your best. And, kind of then if it doesn't work out, if you don't get a job, that's okay. But, not to keep questioning that, you're worth it, something like that, So I think because you can stand in your own way and you can hold yourself back that way. And when you're performing, whether that's voice or stage or something, you don't want that voice in your head constantly that's questioning yourself. You just got to go for it.
People got to know so much about you from this. So is there anything that you would like to say to the fans who play the game, got to know you from the game? Is there anything you would like to say?
What would I like to say? I don't know. Just keep playing, having fun, and not to be so gloomy about the world. I mean, I know it's kind of easy to do sometimes, but things will always get better. Sometimes things get worse and then they get better again. And that's just life.
Yeah.
I'm not referring to anything in particular right now. Maybe I am, I don't know, but yeah, it'll work out.
Yeah. Eventually things will get better.
I'm sure. Yeah, I think so, because if things are bad, they can only get better, right?
Yeah, right.
That's logical.
That's how
okay,
it works.
This is the extent of it. That's